Hi everyone, Carol Ann here from SassyTownhouseLiving.com. And today I'm so excited because we are interviewing Ken Murray. And Ken has a lot of exciting things that he wants to talk to us about today, mainly a new book that he wrote called On Parr. But we're going to be talking about his photography business and a lot of other exciting things as well. I just want to give you a quick intro as to who Ken is. He was born and raised in Hudson, Iowa. He joined the Air Force in 1986 and he earned his MBA in 1990 from the University of South Dakota. He was an instructor, evaluator, navigator on the KC-135 air refueling tankers and spent many years as an instructor navigator at the school at Randolph Air Force Base, Texas, Murray. And he was also a combat veteran who flew missions in support of Operations Just Cause, Desert Storm, Allied Force, and he was also chief of combat operations at the Combined Air Operations Center, supporting Iraq freedom and enduring freedom. So as you can see, he's a great patriot, and we thank him so very deeply for all of his years of service. He also served as editor of Torch Magazine, Air Education, and Training Command's Safety Magazine, where his team won the International Blue Pencil Award for Government Communications. He's also a highly decorated Air Force officer, and Ken retired from the Air Force on May 1st of 2011 as a lieutenant colonel after 25 years of service to our country. Aside from his many outstanding accomplishments, as I mentioned, he's also an author. And today we're here to talk to him about his book and also his business. So hi, Ken. Thanks
Hey, good
so
morning,
much.
Caroline.
Thank
You
you for
bet.
joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about, before we get into the book, which is absolutely fascinating, but I want to get to talk to you about your outstanding photography business. Can you talk to our listeners and readers? And for those of you that are listening to this via podcast, you can also check out an article that I will have live on Sassy Townhouse Living that will display all of most of Ken's or some of Ken's wonderful pictures that we're going to be talking about today. So could you talk to us a little bit about your freelance photography business, your drone photography, and just let our readers know exactly what it is that you do?
I sure will. I've been involved in photography since I was a kid. My parents had a weekly newspaper in Hudson, Iowa. So I grew up in the newspaper and publishing business with them and shot for them while I was growing up from the age of about 12 or so through middle school and through high school. And then I went to the University of Northern Iowa, which is only like 4 miles from there. So I was able to, even while I went to college, I still shot for them, was the photo editor at the Northern Iowan, which is the student newspaper there, for a year, for my junior year, I guess. And so I've been shooting for a long time. Once I entered the Air Force, I carried my gear with me everywhere I went and got some great air-to-air stuff from the tankers, basically a platform you can shoot from anyway. And shot images from all around the world. Every base we went to, I just carry my gear with me and shoot. So it's in my blood. I love it. It's a passion of mine. And so what I did was in 2006, I was at Randolph over in San Antonio, and I wasn't sure exactly when I was going to retire. I knew it was, the end of my Air Force career was in sight. I just didn't know what year. It ended up being 2011. But in 2006, I switched from film to the digital realm and bought digital cameras at the time. And I set up Mach 3 photography. I wanted to set up a business that I could do part-time or on an as-needed basis while I was still active duty, so that when I exited the Air Force in my retirement, I would have something already freestanding that I could step into and go full bore then. And so that's what I did. After I retired, I moved over to Houston. I'm in Houston now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of sporting events and that sort of thing here that you can shoot. And so I started getting involved and making contacts, and ended up I got picked up by Icon Sports Wire. So I shoot the Texans and the Aggies and the Dynamo and Dash soccer teams here, the Astros. Do that for Icon Sports Wire. And then for Golf File, it's an Irish company. I shoot for that agency. I shoot PGA and LPGA golf for them. So this year I shot 17 golf tournaments. So you're out the whole week. So I was out, in upwards of 6 months out of the year this year, traveling, living in hotels and eating out all the time. But I love it. It's a good time. We're always ready for football season, so this is football time of year now. So in the mix there, busy all the time. Lots of long days and late nights, but in the end, it's all worth it. To see your stuff published and that sort of thing. That's what we're after. So things are going well with that.
Incredible.
Things are going well with that. I was glad that I did set up Mach 3 photography before I exited, rather than just step from one and then now what am I going to do type thing. I was ready to go on day one, so it's all good. It's working out
Now
very,
that's
very.
your personal website, correct? Mach 3?
Yes, Mach3photography.com is the website. Yes.
But your photography work is published.
Yes, so my personal business is Mach 3 Photography, but I freelance with this Icon Sports Wire, which they also push images to Getty and AP. So when I shoot, this past Sunday, I shot the Texans and the Jaguars. Those images went to Icon, but they also were automatically sent to Getty and AP. So they go worldwide. As soon as you push them up at halftime, I push the first half images. They are worldwide right out of the workroom there at NRG Stadium.
So you're not even like editing these photos. These photos look great in and of themselves.
There's some quick editing. You develop a workflow, and I've got it down now. But it took time to because you have to caption them, so you have to use code replacements, and that's a lot to get into. But basically, I hit \H4. What comes up on the screen is Houston Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson. So I use code replacements. Just a 3-letter code can give me all of that info in my caption, and you can caption images in a hurry.
Wow.
And then you pull them up in an editing software, and you make that happen. Then you edit your images then.
Well, a lot of folks that are sports fans will appreciate learning a little bit about your photography for sure. So what I want to do is just I fell in love with so many of your photos. You can literally look at them for hours. They're incredible. I particularly want to go over a few of them that you're like super proud of as well. And what I'll do is I will show them to our, the folks that are watching this, say on YouTube and stuff. And again, I'll have this on the article as well. But let's talk about some of these pictures before we get into your book, which again, I'm so excited to talk to you about. But your photography is incredible, and it's so noteworthy. I think we should definitely mention it. So we have a picture here at Pyeongchang. Am I correct?
Yes.
That's the women's hockey team.
Yes, that was the Winter Olympics in 2018. Was able to travel over there with my wife, and was able to shoot the hockey and some ice skating events. Basically, all the indoor stuff I shot, and the women's hockey team upset Canada, and that was huge. And then they won the gold. So very exciting times. There was a lot of photo ops there, with the facial expressions, and that's really what I'm after. I'm after reaction, face shots, I'm trying to tell a story. I'm trying to tell a story at a football game. I was trying to tell a story at the Olympics there, in that I'm trying to put people who can't be there into that arena and feel what I'm able to feel, and that sort of thing. So that's basically my goal when I look through the viewfinder. That's what I'm looking for, is something that is going to move somebody to go, oh, wow, that is an awesome shot. Look at her, or look at him, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because you really share that moment. You really do bring the person right to that event with these images. They're incredible. Ken, let's talk about the next photo that I think is outstanding. It's Houston Astros infielder Jose
Altuve.
Altuve.
Altuve. Yeah.
Did you talk to us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, what I was after there is a lot of times I'll shoot for backgrounds. And in this particular instance, they had the big H in the greenery out there in center field, and I'm sitting there bored, just kind of looking in between innings, looking for something to shoot. And he was standing out there, and so I basically just tried to frame him near that big diamond with the H for Houston, in the center. Just basically tried to frame him to show he's such an outstanding player, and I knew that many people would like to see something like that. So that's what I was after in that image.
Do you get a lot of feedback on your photography too? Do folks leave a lot of comments and ask questions?
They ask a lot of questions. Feedback, not so much on individual images, not so much, but the the way I look at it is when I walk away from an event, I know on Sunday night when I walk out of an NFL game, I know if I had a good game or not. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's luck. Sometimes it's, hey, you may not have had a touchdown in front of you for the entire game. Or in a college game on Saturday night before that NFL game at NRG, there were 3 touchdowns that came right to me, but they
Mm-hmm.
were all called back for holding penalties. So those images are worthless. The play never really happened, so you can't use them anyway. But so there's a little bit of luck involved. You want the play. It's kind of like soccer too. If all the goals are at the other end of the
Right.
pitch, it does you really no good. That's a long reach to get something good down there. To get face shots from 100 yards away is
Oh,
tough.
sure, sure.
Yeah.
That's a great, great photograph. And then we have the women's soccer midfielder, Carly Lloyd.
Yes.
Let's talk about her for a sec.
Yeah. She scored her 100th international goal, and that image was a biggie. That's where she's kissing the ball.
Yeah, that's a
Yes.
great picture.
Yeah, it was right after she scored it. She got the ball and she kissed it. That was a huge image there.
Okay, Ken, let's talk about Justin Rose. That one, that's during Friday's 4 balls of the 2018 Ryder Cup.
Yeah, that was over in Paris, and that shot. I think that was a tee shot, if I remember the shot right. But a lot of times, yeah, you got to take that. You got to take the lighting into effect and that sort of thing. Many times for PGA, I'll look for black backgrounds with that morning sun coming up, and maybe it just highlights the side of their face, but the
Right.
background is all in the shade, so it's black. Man, you can get some stunning stuff. And so you're always looking for things like that. I'll walk the course the day prior. If I haven't been to the course before, I'll walk it the day prior and look and see what tee boxes are going to be good. Hey, that one faces east, so it's going to get that morning sun right in the face. This next one's going to be backlit, that sort of thing. I'll get a general idea before the tournament starts on Thursday.
Well, all that makes you such an incredible photographer. Let's talk about Tiger Woods. The picture you
Yep.
got silhouetted in the afternoon sky. I loved that one. Loved
Yeah,
that.
it was overcast, and when I was just framing that one up to shoot him properly exposed, it wouldn't even have been a keeper. And so I just bumped up the shutter speed a little bit and darkened the image and uh, made him a silhouette. Basically, I knew that the clouds would be a good background.
Oh, beautiful.
So I like all the grass is all in that same focal plane as the
Yes. I
face.
love pictures
So
like that where you could see what's in
yeah,
the air. Oh, those are some of my favorites.
yeah,
One of my other favorites, I have 2 top favorites, is the London one with the Ferris wheel.
yeah. The London Eye one.
Oh,
That
that's a
uh,
gorgeous
my
picture.
wife and I were over there on a mini vacation, seeing some friends, and we were just walking. We'd gone up in the eye. We rode it, and I took some stuff from up there, some images from up in the London Eye there, and we got off and we were walking back across the bridge, and I turned around and looked, and the sun was setting. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Holy cow! It's changing the entire color of the landscape over there."
And
So
you
I
see it right through the image.
exactly, yeah, exactly. So I just said, let's just sit here for about 5 minutes or so. See if any clouds are going to get in front of that sun, and we'll just watch it here for a few. And waited about 5 minutes, and I got that one. That's one of my favorite shots of all time, actually.
Oh,
I,
I
I
love that.
really like I
Love it.
really like that shot.
Now, do you also like let folks buy them so they can frame them like as prints?
Yeah, you can get through my website. You can the licensed images, no. So like the pro football, the
Right.
PGA,
But your
those
personal
those
ones.
are licensed. The personal stuff, yes, they can. And
Okay, good.
I've got a link on my site that says buy unlicensed images here. If
I
you
did
click
see
on
that.
that,
Yes.
yeah,
Okay, I'll make sure I run that across the screen so folks
yeah,
can, because I have some photographer friends of mine where I've done that. I've picked some and they've sent me gorgeous
yeah,
framed. It looks incredible on the wall.
yeah.
And let's lastly, before we get into your book, talk about the Marcus Erickson.
Marcus Ericsson.
It says here, Sweden maneuvers through the
Oh,
during
that's
the
the Formula One.
Formula
Yes,
One. That's
yeah,
it. Okay, yeah, let's talk
F1.
about that one a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. I shoot a couple of races a year. Formula One over in Austin, and then they've got Formula One, and they have the IndyCar series that runs through the Circuit of Americas,
Uh-huh.
which is in Austin, Texas. So I go over and shoot that. I've also shot NASCAR up at Texas Motor Speedway. That's a whole different ball of wax there, learning to shoot racing,
Oh
but
my gosh, I can
it's
only
fun.
imagine.
It's a lot of fun, and you can do a lot of different things. With that, there's a lot of that goes into it. I basically start off. Um, you don't even on a bright sunny day, you don't want to run a way high shutter speed
Hmm.
that stops the tires, because then the car just looks like it's parked right there. So I normally just start off at about 1/500th of a second, and you always get the whir on the tires. Like Firestone will always be all blurred out on the tires, which shows motion. When you're shooting race cars, you need to show motion. You want to have a fast enough shutter speed that stops the car,
Hmm.
but you want to have a fast enough a slow enough shutter speed that shows the whir on the tires, which shows motion. The tires, the lettering on the tires will be all blurred out. They're going to be. You can tell that those tires are really turning.
You know,
But
it's funny you mentioned that because that's the first thing my eye saw when I
yes,
looked at this picture. And I said, oh my gosh, this car looks like it's in motion. But the Alfa Romeo, you can see the lettering, you
yeah.
can see all the detail on the car. It's incredible.
That particular shot is called a panning shot. So
Hmm.
what I did with that was I even slowed my shutter speed down more. I went to like 1/125th of a second, and I'm standing there and I just shoot the whole field as they come by. I find a background that I like with colors or fencing that's going to look good, all blurred with the motion.
Hmm.
And I just get on the cars, get them locked up with the autofocus, and as they go by, I'm just holding the shutter down and going, brrrt, brrrt,
Wow.
and I'll have 1,000 images. I'll get five that are good out of that, like the one you're seeing right there.
Love that one. That's
Yeah,
great.
that's fun.
Um,
It's just
okay,
various things you can
so
do.
So if everybody wants to see your beautiful photography, they could visit your website. And as far as your drone footage goes, I saw some of your drone footage is awesome. I love the real estate drone footage because you
Yeah,
can
that's
really get
fun.
a great, perspective of the area, the whole
But
layout of the home. Just tell us a little bit about your drone photography.
yeah, I started in 2015 when the commercial drones first began. I hold a private pilot's license, so in the early days, I did the 333 exemption, which allows me to fly a drone commercially and make money with the drone. There are many folks out there who don't do that. They are breaking the law by
Yes.
earning money with their drone. and they're giving the true drone operator a bad name. But then the FAA came out with a Part 107, which is basically the same thing. I just did my recurring test yesterday, as a matter of fact, where you're coupling your private pilot license with a drone certificate too. So you get basically like an ID or a driver's license, a certificate from the FAA that says you're a drone pilot as well. So and that allows you to fly it commercially and make money.
It's serious business,
It
drone
is serious
flying. Yeah.
business. And you need to, there's too many cowboys out there, flying at night, flying near airports, flying over people. You can't do it. I don't, and I equate that to my 25 years in the Air Force. I don't bend or break any FAA rule at all. That's a non-starter. So if I have a client that wants me to fly in an area that you can't fly, I say I can't. I'm unable. Can't fly there. So.
So you make sure you check out all the
Oh yeah,
restrictions beforehand.
exactly. Got an
And a
app on
lot
my.
of folks are not doing that, unfortunately.
Exactly. I pull up to a house. I have an app on my phone. I can check the airspace. If it is close to an airport, I'll call the tower and say, "Here's who I am. Here's what I've got. I'm going to be airborne for 15 minutes whenever you're able. Just like not really clearance, but want to let you know that I'm going to be out here. Are you guys all right with that? You bet. You want me to call you back when we're done? Nope. If you're going to be airborne for one battery, 15 minutes, that's fine. Just land it and you're good to go. So that's the way I roll.
How much drone photography do you think you've shot so far? A lot?
And yeah, an awful lot. Yeah. The stills are good. Still photography is good with the drone. I've got an Inspire 1 Pro, which is this camera is almost as good as my DSLR. The
Wow.
the sensor is very, very large. You can get very clear, and I put a polarizer on it, so bright sunny days it looks really, really good. Yeah.
It's incredible.
With that, there's a lot of risk involved, with trees and
Sure.
foliage and that sort of thing. And I don't want to put that drone through someone's picture window. So there is some planning. When you pull up to the house, it's like, all right, hey, how do I want to attack this thing here? I want to get this aspect, this angle. I'll go to this altitude first, approach the house here in a climbing, in an ascent. As I approach the peak, I'm going to reveal that lake that the house sits on in the backyard. I'll reveal
Yeah.
the lake. It's going to be a revealing shot as I climb.
Now, aside from the two clips that I'm showing folks as we're talking, is there any place that they can go to see your drone photography?
I don't really post that because it's all client driven.
Mm-hmm.
So those two I've actually just borrowed from a client, the finished product, and they gave me clearance to go ahead and I can post them on my website and that sort of thing, just to show. And um, I don't really have time to go out there and just make practice
Yeah,
movie. If I can make money with it, I want to be flying for a client. I don't want to be
of course, of
just
course.
burning up battery power.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
Yeah.
So let's get into your book. It's called
Okay.
On Par, and that's spelled P-A-R. And of course, I'll have all the information across the screen for folks to see. Now, we talked about your love of photography, and you kind of started with that when you were in the military. So you're
Right.
a military man, and tell us a little bit about what the driving force was first for you to write this book, and a little bit about who Colonel Ralph Parr is and why you chose him to write about. What makes his story so noteworthy?
Sure. Uh, I met Ralph back in about 2005 or so, and for the first time, I knew who he was, but I really didn't get a chance to really talk to him. But in about 2005 or so, I got to know him very, very well, and that was on my final assignment there at Randolph. And they've named the Parr, the Officers Club is now called the Parr Club at Randolph. They named it after him at a naming ceremony in 2008, and that's in the book as well. But Ralph was He he was a medically retired colonel, and he flew P-38s in World War II. He was a double ace in Korea flying F-86s, and he flew F-4s in Vietnam. Now, I don't know of anyone else who did that off the top of my head. So that's tough to fly in three different huge wars like he, or huge conflicts like he did. Um, but in talking to him, uh, I'd sit there and listen to his stories, and I was enthralled. And obviously, there were libations involved too. We're having a couple of cocktails at the O Club, but just sitting there talking to him, and what was when were you the most scared in your life? And he'd go into a story and start talking about it. It's like, then what'd you do? Well, then what'd you do? What was that guy thinking? I don't, and he'd go into all all the aspects of that particular mission or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was totally enthralled in him. He's my hero, and he's such a humble guy. No one knew. No one, unless you sat with him at the club like that, no one knew everything about him. That he was an awesome pilot, an awesome officer, father, husband. He was a great guy. And
so if you searched for him on the internet, you wouldn't really find anything about him at that point.
There's some stuff out there.
Some things.
Yeah, there is some stuff out there. But like I said, he was so humble. He didn't walk around saying, I was one of the best fighter pilots of all time.
Mm-hmm.
He was, but he would never let on that he was that guy. So I was getting ready to retire then, and it was late 2010,
Mm-hmm.
and he was at the club one night, and he went home at about 8 or so. And two retired 06s, colonels, came up, and we were just standing at the same table. I hadn't left yet. We were just standing there BSing at the table. And I said, someone really needs to tell Ralph's story. I said, that guy, he's got stories that you can't even imagine. And they know him probably better than I did at the time. And so they're standing there and they looked at each other and they're like, well, you're going to have the time. You got the money. Why don't you do it? And I was like, oh my God. So I came home and I came back over to Houston. And we were over in Houston at the time. I drove back over here and I talked to my wife over the weekend. I said, hey, Pick and Smudge were talking to me the other night, and they think that I need to sit down and interview Ralph, and a formal interview type, and basically write his book. And she's like, well, I know if you sign up for something like that, I know that you're going to go in full afterburner and give it your all. So yeah, if that's something that you want to do, by all means do it. So I waited until Tuesday. That was Friday night. I came home Saturday, talked to my wife over the weekend. I waited until Tuesday morning. So Tuesday morning, about 9 or 10, I called over to his assisted living home in New Braunfels, Texas, which is just north of San Antonio. And I said, Ralph, Ken Murray. He says, yeah. And I said, hey, good seeing you the other night. I was talking to Pick and Smudge, and they said it's high time that someone writes a book on you, writes your story, basically. And he kind of sat there and he's like, well, that means we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about airplanes and flying, and you're going to tape record all the stories and then regurgitate them into a book format. I said, you got it. And there was kind of a pregnant pause again. And he said, I'm in. So I said, okay, if you're in, I'm in. So starting right after that, I made 19 trips over there to New Braunfels. It's a 3-hour drive, and I would go.
What course of time? The 19 trips.
Yeah.
Like how long? A year,
from,
2 years?
From 2010 until 12. The
So
book was
2
done.
years.
Yes. And so what I would do is I'd sit down here at home and in a Word document, just write down about 30 questions, 2 or 3 pages worth of questions. But in those questions were follow-on questions that were going to come to me as in his responses, and I would have all those on tape and on a digital recorder. I would go over there on like a Wednesday morning, tape him from like 10 until noon or 1 when it was time for his lunch, and leave. The next day, Thursday, see him. The next day, Friday, see him. Go
Mhm.
to the club that night, sit and visit with him in an informal atmosphere. Now there's no book stuff going on. And then come back Saturday, and the next week or two, I would just sit down with that digital recorder and wear a keyboard out,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Now he
jamming.
passed, right, in 2012?
He passed December 7th of 12, which is ironic because he entered the Army Air Corps on December 7th of 41. 40, yeah, 41. So, um, yeah, he came in and it was Army Air Corps at the time, and everyone wanted him to be a instructor at every school that he went to learn how to fly a particular airplane or airframe. They wanted him to stay and be an instructor. And he's like, no, I want to go fight. I want to go to war type thing. So he was a character. He was a great guy.
So this book, I mean, I read it, and it truly is fascinating to read. And I want to just let folks know that you don't have to be in the military or like an avid military obsessed person. This is a book for anybody and everybody, country, loves patriotism, really wants to understand what he went through for our protection and safety, all the way from dating back to Vietnam, correct?
Yes, from World War II through Vietnam, exactly. And that was kind of the inner arguments that when I started writing. I wanted to write it in a way that a person like you would understand, that has no ties to the military, no nothing. But if you read it, I wanted to uh, I wanted to explain away all the Air Force jargon, that I could have included in there without any explanation, and all the Air Force guys would have got it and just kept right on flying through it, reading
Mhm.
it, where you would have been going, "What? That's like six acronyms in
Exactly.
a row," type thing. I
Well, you
wanted to
did a
wait.
great job at that,
I,
because
I appreciate
it
that.
really, when I was reading it, I didn't feel like confused about what you were talking about. You really went through, like putting you in the moment that he was in
Right.
during the situations that he was in. So let's talk a little bit about. He was credited with downing what, 10 enemy aircraft.
In
Can you
Korea,
tell us
yes.
what makes this story so noteworthy? And just let's touch on some of the major accomplishments so our listeners can get a feel.
Yeah. To become a fighter ace, you have to down 5 enemy aircraft. He downed 10, so he was a double ace in Korea. That's no easy feat, and the reason being is that in that day and age, flying the F-86, it had 6 guns that were right near the nose, the intake in the nose of the
Mm-hmm.
aircraft. All he had was guns, so he relied on his eyesight to find the MiG, chase them down, get within firing range of his bullets,
Right.
and shoot them down. Where today, you fly a four ship of F-15s or F-22s or F-35s out there, they've got it, they've got it down to a science where you launch and you're launching a missile from 30 miles away
Oh,
and
sure.
leave. You launch and leave, and that missile goes and hits that target. And so it's a whole different ball of wax. 30 miles, you wouldn't even see that guy yet. Where so he had to find and pick out those 10 enemy aircraft and keep his behind alive as
Sure.
well.
I
So
mean, that's a miracle in and of itself
it
that he
is.
survived all of these
It
encounters.
is. It is. And we'll talk a little bit about the Vietnam mission as well, where that one he just about went down in that one.
Oh, my
So
word.
yeah,
So he's the only person who was ever awarded both the Distinguished Service Cross and the Air Force Cross, correct?
exactly.
Tell us a little bit about that.
The Air Force Cross came about in 65, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but like 1965 is when the Air Force Cross came out. Before that, it was the Distinguished Service Cross. Um, they are equal in rank of medals. They each are one below the Medal of Honor. So that's how high that's how prestigious that award is. And I include the write-ups, his citations for those awards. Those are in an appendix in the book. You can read
Mhm.
about the missions that um, that talk about and describe what actually happened, why he is legitimately eligible for this award. But the thing I want people to know is that, you know, the Medal of Honor is the next highest thing, and he got two of these that are in second place, right behind it. So, and the reason he's the only one to be awarded both of them was that it's tough to fly in two separate conflicts. Not very many guys flew in World War II and
Mhm.
Korea, and then Vietnam for sure. So it's tough just for timing to be awarded both those. And you have to have missions that are um, that make you eligible for those
Right.
awards.
So
So
to
they,
put it in perspective, uh, tell us why it's such a big deal to receive these awards, and it's not just something that the government hands out to folks. Just
no,
when
it's not just something that someone hands out to folks. There's a big process that goes on, and there's a lot of legitimizing that goes on. They need to make sure that it's legit so that you don't want to ever get in a situation where they are just handing out awards like candy. That's not how the military works. You earn those awards and through blood, sweat, and tears, and risking your life. You're risking your life to save ours.
of
So
course,
it's
of
the
course. That's why,
it,
as any patriotic American, I had such a great appreciation for the life he led and what he did to protect and serve. And
exactly.
it's really commendable that you took years out of your life to tell his story. And folks need to know his story.
They
They
do.
really
No,
do.
they really do. And that I've seen this saying. You'll see them in cross stitchings and that sort of thing, and it's the home of the free because of the brave,
Yes,
and that epitomizes Ralph right there. That's what he was all about. He loved this country. He was a red-blooded American, and I mean, he would have done anything for the betterment of this country. I
of course.
promise
And I'm sure that surrendering your life to the military has an impact on your personal life as well. And I'm sure in your book, maybe you touch upon a few of those
you.
things a little
I
bit
do.
here and
Yep.
there. And, the sacrifice that he made to protect us and serve
Exactly.
us. So
No,
let's
you're
talk
correct.
about Vietnam. Is that Kyung Yen? How do you
Uh,
say it?
Quezon.
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 I'm
Yeah.
so bad at pronouncing these things.
No, no
So
worries.
tell us a little bit about these low-level passes against enemy firepower in what poor weather, I believe,
Yes.
that during this battle.
That particular mission, the Battle of Quezon had been under siege for months, and we were about to get run out of there, actually. And they had gun emplacements on a hill, and the runway sat kind of down in a valley, and these gun emplacements for months had just been racking on C-130s coming in slow and slow to land, just nailing them and doing a lot of damage, killing people and that sort of thing.
Tell us a little bit about Quezon. Like, what is hear that?
Quezon,
Like, well, what is it? I have no clue.
yeah, Quezon was an outbase there, in it was a base in South Vietnam,
Okay.
and a military base. It had Marines on it, Air Force firepower to back up the ground guys. And so Ralph was flying the F4 at the time, and which is a two-seater. He had a back-seater. Tom McManus was his name on this particular mission. Anyway, on this particular mission, what happened was uh, they'd been trying to get this gun emplacement. It was a ZSU 23. That doesn't mean anything to you, but it was basically a four gun, and it's if you've seen the old movies where they're turning it's basically four big guns, and they're turning, trying to track enemy aircraft as they come
Wow.
by, and these guns are. That's what was on this hillside,
So this is
and
all like manual. It's all
yeah,
done like
Yes,
It's like really very little automation taking
the
place
North
here.
Vietnamese had these guns, and that's what they were firing on us with. And so we've been trying to take those guns out for months.
Mm,
This particular day, he heard over the radio from a FAC, from a forward air controller in a small light airplane, an L-19 Bird Dog is what it was,
mm-hmm.
said that they were taking a bunch of firepower from this hillside. So that Bird Dog talked him onto that target, talked Ralph onto that target, basically walked him onto it. Hey, do you see the crossing roads? Yes. Okay, go northeast of the crossing roads, 2 clicks. Do you see the building? Yes, I see the building. Okay, from the building, it is 300 yards up the hillside, uh, near a bunch of rocks. Do
Mm-hmm.
you see the rocks? Got it. That's your target. So Ralph made 8 passes. He had napalm on board and he had guns. So he went across. The first pass was a dry run. He went across it, and now he's flying at 350, 400 knots at ground level. He's down on the deck in bad weather.
Easy.
Pull up off the target and look back over his shoulder, never losing the target, always keeping his eye on the target. He'd get set up for another run, came by, dropped napalm, came back by, dropped napalm. All he had left was guns, and so he came by with strafing runs, just using his gun as his last resort. And he
How
ended
did
up,
he not get shot down in 8 runs?
when they landed, they had they had over 20 holes in their aircraft, and some of them were like through and through.
Oh,
They
I'm
went
sure.
all the way through from one side of the fuselage to the other. They landed, and he and Tom McManus counted up the holes, and he was actually put in for a Medal of Honor for that particular mission. And it's been shot down a couple of times. My opinion, I think that it's kind of a law of recency type thing.
Mm.
In the days leading up to that, there'd only been a couple of guys killed, where months prior to that, there were many. Had those guns been taken out then, he probably would have received the Medal of Honor for that particular sortie. So there are those who say, no way should he be eligible for it. There are others who say there's no reason why he should not have it. That's what that medal is
Yeah.
for.
Is there
So
ever a chance that they will give it to him, or is it kind of
maybe
over and done? Oh,
it's gonna take probably the act of a congressman or something like that
yeah,
to
yeah,
roll
yeah.
in and help push the paperwork to make it
Sure.
happen.
That's
So
always the way. That's always the
yeah,
way.
exactly.
Let's talk about in 1953 that he downed a Soviet Yushin.
The IL, the Aleutian 12.
Yushin.
Yeah, we
Let's
call
talk
it
a little bit about that.
on that
That
day.
provoked like an international thing, right?
That was the last day of the Korean War. That was July 27th of 53.
Mm-hmm.
And the ceasefire, the armistice had been signed,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't go into effect until either 10 o'clock or midnight that night. So his marching orders when he stepped to his aircraft that day were anything that's flying that is not U.S., down it. It's not supposed to be airborne. So what they were going to do was take a trip up north into North Korea and see what enemy aircraft were still on the ground. They were basically just kind of logging, hey, here's how many aircraft are at this field, that sort of thing. So the armistice had been signed. As he's flying along, he sees this twin engine IL-12 coming across the Yalu into North Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, whoa, that's not supposed to be there. Who is that? So he maneuvers so they can't see him. It's a big, slow moving, twin engine aircraft. And so he maneuvers so they can't see him and comes in behind them, and it's got a red star on the tail.
Which means, so our
It,
listeners
it
know.
was it was it was Chinese or Russian, yeah. It
Mm.
was it was enemy. So he takes a look at it, and the big thing then was, basically, where is he? He doesn't want to get and he's got 9 kills. This would be his 10th. So
Mm-hmm.
there are some people who say he was after the double ace. There are others who say it was an enemy aircraft. That was his marching orders. That's what he was supposed to do. That was his ROE. His rules of engagement were, it's not us, it's down. So He maneuvers, sees it's a star. He's like, he wants to make sure that they're not north of the Yalu River. He
Right.
wasn't south of the Yalu River. He's checking maps. He's looking at the ground. Yep, we definitely are here. He pulls up, makes a gun pass on him, and the wing comes off. He downs that airplane.
Wow.
Well, there were 19 Russian generals that were being transported in that airplane back to Vladivostok. And they were just cutting the corner heading to Russia.
19 Russian
19 Russian
generals.
generals and
That is
four.
huge in and of
Yeah,
itself.
exactly. There were 19 Russian generals and four crew, I think, for a total of 23, if my memory serves right. So when he lands, uh, I mean, he's under scrutiny. He went through like 56 hours of interrogation with the
Oh, I
CIA,
bet.
and they're, that we're trying to get our story and figure out what actually happened on our side. They're doing the same thing. How could this have happened? The Russians are. So that's probably a book all in of itself. Another
Or a
one.
movie.
Yeah, exactly. So, um, like I said, he was under a lot of scrutiny there for a long time, and even, he I think that bothered him. He you know all the way to the end. He probably had that in the back of his mind at all times. All the way to the end of his life. So
Did he talk to you about that, like the emotions that he connected to that event? Did he feel guilt?
um,
Was he proud of that moment? Like,
he
how did
uh,
he feel?
he uh, he didn't. He wasn't guilty. He didn't feel guilt that I know of. But he wasn't boisterous about it either. Hey, I got those guys. That
Mhm.
sort of thing. He was not that guy at all. Like I said, he did what he was. He did what he was programmed to do, and that's that particular
Well,
mission.
they told him no
Exactly.
aircraft, right? So,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So he did what he was told. He had no idea who was on it. You
right.
know, it
That's
could
an
have been
incredible moment.
it could have been beans and bullets. Who knows? But it had 19 Russian generals on it. So
Right, right, right. So he received 10 distinguished flying crosses, right?
yeah,
Why is this historically remarkable?
it's hard to get them. There are, I've got two air medals, and that's huge. He had tens and tens of air medals. He was that guy. He was one of the best fighter pilots to ever fly in the United States Air Force. He really
And
was.
again, the military does not hand out
No,
medals
no,
just like candy. I mean, you have to truly earn these things,
exactly,
correct?
exactly. Yeah, yeah. People need they. I would love for people to read it, to review it, to just learn more about him. And many will say, "Why do I want to know about this guy?" Read the book, because you're going to go, "My God, I never even heard of that guy,"
Right.
and he was something else, and he really was.
And it's a great way to pay like to him and to show, that we keep his memory alive for
Exactly.
what he did to serve our country and everything that he sacrificed. And
Yeah.
just to know about everything that he accomplished, like all the little minute details of things that you go over in your book, it's incredible. Let's talk a little bit about the documentary, which is very, very exciting. Can
Yes.
you tell folks exactly what the story is with the documentary?
Yeah. There's a documentary company that's affiliated with San Francisco State University, and what they do is they are contracted through the VA. And this year they put out they put out four 12-minute shorts that will make a 1 hour documentary. And so they contacted me about 8 months ago, and they said, "Hey, we want to focus on Ralph Parr his for the Korean War portion." And with these, they're talking about dead folks, so they are going to do a 12-minute short on him. It's been shot. They came and interviewed me on two separate days. They interviewed his daughter, and they interviewed his son, his stepdaughter and stepson. And so, and I got him a bunch of footage through the archives Air Force archives that they'll use. And so that's in the works. It should be out in November of 19.
Where are they
And
releasing that, Ken?
that it's
What's the
probably
distribution like?
it might be like a Netflix or a Hulu or something like that. I'm not really sure at
Wow.
this point, but it'll be something like that.
And of
Yeah,
course, when you get all that information, you'll let us know and we'll
of
post
course,
that. We'll update the article
of
so
course,
that folks can, make sure they have that for reference too.
you bet.
That's an incredible accomplishment. We're
Yep.
so excited to see that.
I can't wait to. It's they got some good stuff. I know that.
Anything else about your book that you want to touch upon? You want to let listeners know? Anything about the Colonel that you feel is noteworthy to mention?
I just think that that for those who are hesitant, give it a chance. Go ahead and take a look at it. Get the Kindle version and read it on your Kindle.
Mm-hmm.
It is the perfect gift for that grandfather, father, uncle, aunt or uncle, whatever, um, who has everything.
Yes.
Get it as a stocking stuffer. They would love it. Anyone who served in any veteran, but anyone who served in World War II, Korea, or Vietnam, they're going to have ties to that book because I've got maps and that sort of thing. They're going to know, hey, I was stationed right there. That sort of thing.
That's a perfect
I did
stocking gift
exactly.
too for
Yeah,
Christmas.
I didn't know Ralph Parr, but I knew of guys like him, or I knew there was a guy like him in at Case On sort of thing. So yeah, it's going to be good. One of the stories that they'll read in there, you talk about the red stripe, and the red stripe actually is on the cover of the book. The cover was a painting by Ross Buckland, who is he's a Canadian artist, and he was so nice. I contacted him because I love that painting. He met Ralph back in the '07, '08 timeframe, I think, and Ralph told him the story of when he jumped 16 MiGs. So that is the cover. It's a wraparound, so the painting actually goes all the way across the spine and across the back of the book as well.
And
That's
we'll put a shot of that up here so
Yeah,
that folks can
and
see.
that's the entire painting. But Ross loved Ralph, and so when I asked him if I could use, that I was interested in using that painting as the book cover, he was all about it. He free gratis. He's like, you bet, use it. So I did, and then I sent him a hard back when it was done.
Wonderful.
The red stripe I want to talk about real quick.
Sure.
Ralph was implementing PSYOPs, psychological ops,
Mm-hmm.
before the Air Force had even thought about PSYOPs. And we do PSYOPs all the time now.
Sure.
But one day he's out there with his crew chief at the aircraft, and his crew chief had some red duct tape.
Mm-hmm.
So they were in the Chiefs Squadron, the Indian Chiefs Squadron is what it was called. So he took that uh, red duct tape and he put a red stripe, just like a football helmet type thing, a
Mm-hmm.
red stripe across the top. And you can see it in an image in the book of his helmet on top of his casket at his funeral. The red stripe is still there. And his crew chief was kind of like, "What? Why are you doing that?" And he said, "Because." He said, when I face someone out there, they're that close to where they can see into the cockpit when they're in a dogfight situation.
Right.
And I want, and that guy happens to survive, I want him to go back to his squadron, his enemy squadron, and say, I don't know who that guy was, but I met up with a guy with a red stripe on his helmet, and you don't want to mess with him.
What a
That,
great story.
exactly. And it was just little things like that are throughout the book that uh, I just he made me laugh, and it was a joy just to get to know him even better and talk to him. One other thing with the book, what I tried to do was when he would tell me a story that included a date. While I was writing the book, I just wore out Google by what were the current events of that day? What was happening on July 27th of 1953? And I'd pull up the Indianapolis newspaper front page and just a PDF of it that happens to be online and read it. What was going on during that day? And I tried to incorporate that just to say, while while Ralph was getting ready at 6 a.m., while Ralph's he's shaving and getting ready for his morning mission, a half a world away, this is what was going on in the U.S. And so I try to tie things together with current events that were actually happening, so that people who were alive during that time, they'll be able to go, oh yeah, that's right, that was happening about then.
Well, that's another reason I love the book, because it's very relatable and it does pull you right into the event. So, thank you so much for writing this book and letting us all know who this incredible human being was and everything that he did for our country. And as a patriot, I'm so proud to know that it's folks like him are the reason why we're sitting here today. So.
That's right. I agree. Thank you so much for having me. I really
Oh,
appreciate it,
thank you,
Carol.
Ken. And if folks need to reach out to you, do you have a way they can reach out to you with
They
any
can,
questions?
you bet. They can reach out to me through my website at mach3photography.com, or
Okay.
don't hesitate to shoot me an email if you want to. Then that would be onparauthor@gmail.com. On
Okay, and I'll
par.
run that.
Yep. Yep.
I'll run that across. So
They
that's
can
onparauthor at
at
gmail.com.
gmail.com. Yep.
Okay, great. Because sometimes folks want to reach
Yep.
out to you to ask a question of one thing or another. So,
Sure thing.
okay, thank you so much, Ken. It was such a joy having you here today.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it, Carol Ann. Take care.
Take care. Bye bye.